What's up guys, today you're going to learn more about the Catalan opening and we're going to use Nepomniachtchi's game from the candidates 2021. So Nepo was white and he started with the English opening, actually with c4, and after knight f6 he played g3. After e6, bishop to g2 and d5 he played knight to f3. Now here black has many options. He can play, for example, bishop to e7 and trying to castle quickly. He could play c5, just going for the center. He could also play c6, which is a bit more passive and a little worse for black, I think. He can also play d4 and go into some reverse kind of Benoni systems, but here black actually decided to just take on c4. Now how does white regain this pawn? Now white sometimes plays knight to a3, trying to just capture the pawn on c4. He could also play a4 first and then playing knight to a3 and taking on c4. But in this game, Nepo decides to use the classical approach, just giving a check on a4, and after black blocks the check, then just taking the pawn on c4. Now, as you have always been told, moving the queen out too early in the opening is bad for you because it's going to get attacked and everything, but here it's actually okay, because the queen just recaptured the pawn, and on the next move, the queen is going to go to this nice c2 square where it belongs. So white's queen here is not a problem. The problem is going to be black's bishop here on c8. And this is typical in the Catalan opening, where we have our bishop here on g2, exerting pressure on this diagonal. This bishop here can't move out on this diagonal because the pawn here is blocking him. And if he wants to go to this diagonal here on b2, well, he's going to have to play something like b6 or b5 to get it there. And then our bishop here is going to prove really dangerous. So this is one of the really common problems here for black in the Catalan opening. Okay, so now black decided to play a6, and now white just doesn't allow any tempo on the queen with b5, and he just goes back to c2 immediately. So before continuing the development, black decided to play c5, and now after some developing moves, bishop to e7, castles and castles, white just plays d4. He strikes at the center, and he basically wants to open this d file so he can use his rook here, which is going to be on the same file as the opponent's queen. You also open your bishop here by playing d4, so this is a really nice move here. Now black took the pawn and white recaptured. Now at first glance at the position, it may seem that the position is kind of symmetrical, you know, we both have 2 pawns here on the queen side and 4 pawns on the king side, but actually it's not, because like I said before, this bishop here has a really hard time finding a place to be, and this bishop here is a monster, as you can see, just exerting pressure on this whole diagonal. And for black this is really annoying, because black would want to play something like b5 and bishop b7, but he doesn't have time, like you can see, because this rook would hang. But black still has to develop somehow, and he played queen to c7. And now after rook to d1, maybe a better move was bishop to f4, just attacking the queen. The point is that after e5, we have an interesting move, knight to f5, just attacking this bishop. And we are already better here. He had also weakened his light squares here by playing e5, similar as you're going to see later in the game. Now blocking the check with the bishop to d6 doesn't really help, because we can just take the bishop, and when he recaptures, now we can play rook to d1, getting the rook on the same file as the queen, and we could have some discoveries with our knight now. So the queen would have to move, and I mean, black still is not developed, he still has this bishop here, and after, let's say, rook to c1, you can see that white is clearly better, he's way ahead in development, and what is black going to do? It's just too hard for him to develop any pieces. Because even if he moves the rook out of this dangerous diagonal and now tries to play b5, it still doesn't work, because if he plays b5, he still lands on this nasty fork here. Here. So it's a really difficult position for black and a dream position for the Catalan player. But okay, Ian Nepomniachtchi didn't play bishop to f4, but he played rook to d1, which is also great and already better for white. Now black played rook to d8, and after bishop to e3, knight to b6, rook to c1, developing the rook to this nice square from where it's also eyeing the opponent's queen. And now black just doesn't find any way for him to develop his bishop normally, because of this pawn on e6, because of this pawn on b7. That's why he makes a really committal move and a pretty bad move as well, e5. Now first of all, if black tried to develop his bishop through d7, this is also really bad. And simply because of a move such as queen to b3, and our rook again is on the same file as the queen, and we could have some discoveries with our knight. The queen also can't move from there, for example to b8, because the knight on b6 is now unprotected. And if he does, I don't know, something like this, we could just play knight to d5, let's say, and we're attacking the bishop, attacking the queen, double attacking the knight. So this is just over. Oh, sorry. So this is just over. Yeah, that's why bishop to d7 is really not great, and black tried with this e5. But the big problem of this move is that it weakens white squares. As you can see, now here this pawn was guarding the square on f5, also the square on d5. Now after e5, it doesn't anymore. And we can just jump on f5 with our knight, which is a really nice square, just attacking this bishop. Also, it's closer to the opponent's king, we could have some sacrifices or something. So that's why black found this knight very dangerous and he just took it off the board. But okay, white's advantage, it's still great. After we recapture this bishop, and knight to c4, now activating the knight, attacking the bishop here and also the pawn, white just plays bishop to g5. Now this is a really nice move, and the point of it is to actually get rid of the last defender, which could protect these light squares here, as you can see. So after we get rid of this knight, we could play, for example, bishop to e4, and these light squares are so weak, black is going to have no way to defend this, as you're going to see. After rook takes d1, knight takes d1, we also have this pin on the queen now. Black just plays rook to d8. Now white decides to just eliminate this knight. Like we said, this is all a part of the plan. And now bishop to e4. And it's really beautiful because how can he defend this pawn? I mean, he can't play g6 because this bishop simply falls. And if he just tries to move the pawn, well then we can give him a check, let's say, and we still have this pin. So we can just play knight to e3, and this knight is going to drop here because it's on a pin. Just be careful that after he takes here, you do not take the queen, because you're going to get mated here, actually, because the help of the knight. But you first give him a check, and then after he goes here, you just take the queen with a check. So this is completely winning. So what's amazing here is how Ian Nepomniachtchi used this move e5 to his advantage, because it weakens the light squares so much that he's already winning. Okay, so now black decides to play queen to a5. And white is not in a hurry, he just blocks any of black's evil plans with knight to c3, and he's still attacking this like he did before. Now black moves out of the way, and now a nice little move, knight to d5, attacking the bishop on f6, also attacking the knight on c4. Black is really in trouble. He played b5 to defend his knight, but now just queen takes h7. We're threatening to just checkmate the king. So he has to do something, he has to get rid of this knight, and he just takes it. Now after bishop takes it back, queen to d2. And suddenly it seems like white has just blundered a rook, or this double attack on the rook and the bishop. But this is all in Nepo's plan. He just takes the knight on c4, and after he recaptures, just e4. A powerful move which cements this bishop here on d5, which is a really nice square. And now we suddenly have an example of a typical opposite color bishop's position, which is just completely winning for one side, because their bishop is really active and the opponent's bishop is just like a pawn and it doesn't do anything. So this is just amazing here. Black now decides to take the pawn on b2, but white checks the king, gets him into the center where it's going to be in danger, and after queen to c8, black basically has to drop back to defend his king, and now white just takes the pawn. Now in this position, black tries one last trick, which is queen to b5, trying to exchange queens, but of course you're not going to exchange queens, because if you do, you get into a opposite color bishop endgame, which, as you know, is a lot of times winning even if you're a pawn or 2 pawns down. So here this would just be a draw. And also the other reason why you don't exchange queens here is that the opponent's king is of course in the center and it's weak, so you basically don't want to do this. You're giving away all your play here. So that's why you just play queen to c7 check, and after queen to d7, queen to c5. And here it is all just over, because if the queen blocks the check, then we have queen to a7 check, and we're attacking this pawn here 2 times, and we're also attacking this pawn. If the queen blocks, we take this pawn. If the king moves, we can just take this pawn here, and we're 2 pawns up, and the black king is just too weak to continue the game. So that's why black Alekseenko Kiril just resigned in this position after queen to c5 check. Now to me, this game was just amazing. I mean, the use of these weak light squares and also the opening was very interesting. It was really amazing how Ian Nepomniachtchi just got a big advantage right out of the opening, because black played some suspicious moves in the opening. I mean, to me this game was super interesting. I hope it was the same for you. If you enjoyed this video, please watch more, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.